Getting alcohol free for you. We don't do this for other people. Ultimately, we do this for ourselves. Do we want a better life? That's the question we have to ask ourselves when we're at the end of our rope with alcohol use. If you're new to the channel, welcome. My name's Josh, living life alcohol free. If you're returning, thank you guys so much for being here and supporting the channel. I did a poll recently about why we get sober, and overwhelmingly it was for ourselves. But for me, it didn't start that way. I didn't realize I was really doing it for me until a little bit into my recovery. At the beginning, I wanted better relationships. That was really the key. It took me about 3 years to get to a point where I felt like I could actually do this. It took the pandemic. It took a blow up at my family. It took me going basically to my rock bottom and feeling lonely, feeling vulnerable, feeling like I couldn't handle alcohol anymore. I could not handle my drinking. It was out of control. I couldn't stop it. I couldn't stop over drinking. And that's really when I started to question, do I just need to be done with alcohol? When I first quit, I was really just hanging on, white knuckling it. I did have a few things. I had a therapist, I had a group, I had my wife, I had resources. So I was really just trying to stay alcohol free. Really just staying sober was the goal. Whenever I would have an urge to drink, that was the key, was to get through that urge to drink. Once I was able to get through those first few weeks and first couple visits in therapy, I started to recognize that I wasn't doing this for anyone but myself. And as selfish as addiction is, it almost felt like it was selfish of me to form these boundaries, to form these thoughts that revolved around me. But when I would look back on how long I drank and how I used alcohol to cope with everything, and how it took away most of my time, how it absorbed basically, and I gave it over willingly. I gave alcohol my life. It was when I started to recognize that I was thinking about it morning, noon, and night, thinking about alcohol, that I realized that it's a really selfish thing, getting drunk and thinking about alcohol all the time. It takes away from our being in the moment. It takes away from our valuable time. It can take away from our family time. It can take away from our productivity at work. It can take away our joy of just doing things that bring us joy. It takes away all those things, and it's really just all absorbing. We just are all in to our addiction, and it's selfish to do that. I had a lot of struggle, and I'll be honest with you guys. I had a lot of struggle early on in my marriage. I struggled with the fact that whenever my wife would call me out on something, it was usually because I was thinking about myself only. And first and foremost, I was in denial of that, of course. But the thing is, as time went on, when I started to open up like an argument or something like that, or an issue that I was having with something, it was a lot of times it was I need this, I need that, I want this, I want that. And this went on for a long time, pretty much, all through my marriage. And when I quit drinking and I was able to kind of look at that from a perspective of being alcohol free, I was able to be honest with myself. And it was because most of that time that I was with my wife and still drinking, alcohol was my primary focus. And I wasn't able to handle anything. So whenever stressful situations would come up, my first thought was to, go drink. My first thought was to um, relieve that uncomfortable feeling and not really deal with it, sweep it under the rug, really. And although I didn't always do that, and I always tried to come from a place of um, looking at others. I mean, we have a family, we have kids, and we had teenagers for a lot of my struggle with my drinking. And I would say that I needed that to cope with all the stress at home. But the truth of the matter is that I just didn't have any other coping mechanisms to fall back on. I reached for alcohol because it was the easiest thing to get. It was something that I didn't have to look within myself and fix. It was something that I could continue to pass the buck and blame other people for what's going on at home. It was a situation where alcohol was just my answer, and it was my answer for a long time, but it became more and more of my solace, and I would seek alcohol to quiet those issues. And then when my wife and I would have an argument, I would use alcohol to, quiet that pain. And when I first quit drinking, honestly, I mean, I had to focus on, I think the most important thing we focus on when we first quit drinking is just not drinking. That's it. We don't have to worry about the future. We don't have to worry about the past. We just focus on right now, getting through whatever it is we need to get through, talking it out, especially if it's an urge to drink. And if we can do that, we're stronger, and we can get through it. We're stronger for the next urge and the next urge after that. And until finally it just becomes a fleeting thought. Drinking just becomes a fleeting thought. It might enter your mind for a minute, how it might feel good to use it, to take the edge off, to cope with whatever's going on in our life. And then we remember all the pain and agony that the alcohol caused. We remember that, and then we just, we move on, and we do other things that actually bring us true joy, things that we replaced our drinking time with instead. So it's not that we're being selfish by starting to actually care about ourselves now. It's actually something that we probably should have done from the very beginning. I mean, I started drinking when I was 15 years old. And through those formative years, I wasn't able to learn how to cope with, tough situations like conflicts and conflict resolution. I wasn't able to do that. I was, piecing together ways to deal with life, but I was leaning on alcohol more and more, and other things, but alcohol primarily was my issue, especially after I was 21. But going into my 20s and mid-20s, I didn't have those tools, and I shut down. I shut off. I basically lost everything when I was 24 years old. Didn't have a job, didn't have a girlfriend anymore, didn't have school, basically I didn't have anything, and I felt like I didn't have a life other than drinking. And so I just basically cut everything out. I'm like, I gotta start fresh, start over, and I don't know how long it's gonna take. But that's okay. I mean, that is what it is. I cannot deal with people anymore. I can't deal with people at work, people at school, just people in general were really hard for me to deal with. So ultimately, it took me probably about 3 years and the death of my grandpa to really start to come out of my shell. he was somebody who I looked up to. He was somebody who was really important to me, and a kind of a father figure, because I didn't have the father figure growing up that I felt like I wanted or needed. I didn't have the role model that I felt like I needed. And as a result, I kind of clung to my grandpa. And when he passed away, I started to realize that I want to live a life that honors him. I want to live a better life. I want to, do the things that he did, raise a family, keep in touch with his kids, have good relationships with people, and that's what I wanted to do. So I set off on that journey. I told my doctor that that's what I wanted to do. I told him I drink too much. It was the first time I confided in a doctor or any healthcare professional, for that matter, about the level of my drinking. And I just decided I wanted to live an honorable life in honor of him. So that was really the beginning of it all for me, and I was 27 years old. So, but we fast forward some time, and I drank through all that. I tried to better myself, and I did. I got out there. I started dating again. I got a good job. I went back to school and got a degree. I did all that, and now I'm in my early 30s and still looking for the right person to spend my life with. And that finally happened when I was 33 years old. And I met the person that I felt like I waited my entire life for. We got engaged, we got married, and I was ultimately thrusted into a family life. She had 3 kids, and they were young at the time, not super young, but 6, 8, and 10. And it was a situation where it was like, well, this is all new to me. And a year later, after we got married, we had our first child. Ultimately, our only child together. But it was where she had been through this already 3 times, and for me, I had never even as much as changed a diaper. So this was all new to me, and I felt like very I felt very offended all the time. Like, she knew what she was doing, I didn't, and it led to a lot of resentment for me. And so, if I'm being honest, things didn't get off on the right foot right away. And I leaned on alcohol for those first, let's see, we got married in 2013, so 7 years. And then the pandemic hit, but between 2016 and 2020, there was so many things going on. Like I said, the girls were teenagers, and there was just a lot of commotion at the house. I grew up an only child. Nobody really around. It was just really just my mom and me, and it really just, it was quiet for lack of a better term. It was quiet, and then add on top of the fact that I just really had social anxiety. I had anxiety with dealing with people. It was a recipe for disaster. And I couldn't have prepared for that. I did my best to prepare for marriage. In the first place, I paid off my debt. I went to therapy to make sure that I wasn't going to get drunk on our wedding day. I went to therapy for a lot of different things, on how to best care for these girls. Their biological father was still in the picture anyway, and still is to this day, but I was still going to be primarily around them, every day, and making sure that they're off to school, making sure they're back from school, making sure they get their chores done, making sure that things are taken care of. And it was stressful, and I drank a lot through that, and I would say that I needed it, but in hindsight, it was just because I was addicted to it. I had spent my entire life drinking, binge drinking, and that's really just all I knew. That's how I coped with things. And yes, therapy and meditation and hikes and all these things, exercise, it all helps. But to be honest with myself and to say, like, the underlying issue is the alcohol was really hard to do. And I would do it and I would face it every now and then, but then I would get to a point where I was like, forget it, man, this is too hard. And but so to get back on topic here, you are the main thing. You have to do what's best for you in recovery. Eventually you can, like, live for, like, other people. You can live to help and take care of other people. You can do that. But, like, for me, in my experience, you have to learn how to take care of you, learn what makes you tick, learn how to have boundaries with people. And that was a tough one. That was a tough one to learn, because people get used to the you that drinks, the you that is out of control, the you that doesn't handle things well, that can take the blame, that will take the blame. And people start to get used to that. And when you're different and you're not drinking anymore, and you're a little bit more maybe serious, or a little bit more I'm not going to say I changed, my personality changed, but I became a little bit more protective of myself. And sometimes it's hard for people to get used to that. And sometimes they might even hold that against you. Like, this isn't what Josh used to be like, and now I can't take advantage of him. And, I'm not going to say that my family took advantage of me, but, like, just, I think in general, people, they get used to you being a certain way, and now you're different, and now you're maybe you stand up for yourself a little bit more. Maybe you say no more often than you used to. Maybe if something isn't going the way that you think that it should be, you say something, and then you say, look, we need to form a better structure here, a better plan for this or that. And they might not like that, but to make it work, that's what you need. And you're giving yourself that need, that basic need. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing to be ashamed of. There's nothing to be worried about. That's just the way that it is. That's just the way that we need to operate from now on in our life. And now that we're not using alcohol to cope with everything so often, we can do that. We can learn that. So once we start to learn about ourselves and take those things to the next step, our relationships start to get better. We go places, we have more authentic conversations with people, because we're not drunk, we're not drinking, we're not thinking about alcohol. And then we leave the party, and we don't hang around and keep drinking. We go home, we get on with our day, or we go wherever we're going. We get up in the morning and we're not hungover. We feel good. We can start our day feeling good, positive. And every single day is a building block to the next thing. And eventually, it's not just about me anymore. Now I'm a person of faith, so the way that I live my life is maybe different than you. Maybe it's the same. But I'm not living for just me. I'm living for God's glory. But that's not to say that I don't have certain needs, and I need to meet those needs. Sometimes I have to meet the needs myself, but there's other times when I need to ask for help. I need to have a conversation with somebody. Still, it's not easy to do, but the more we practice these things, the easier they get, and we can move on with our life. And we're not ruminating about it all the time. And when we're stuck in addiction, or we're drinking all the time, we're ruminating about every little thing, every little aspect that's going wrong, every little thing that somebody says. We're taking it personally, and that just builds up resentments over time. It builds up anger and anxiety, and ultimately guilt and shame for our behavior that leads to sometimes our bad behaviors, and then all of that just leads to, we're ashamed, and that's not good either. So what we do when we quit drinking and we focus on ourselves is we find things that bring us joy. We form boundaries. We live our authentic selves. We do things that actually are what we should be doing in the first place. And that's another thing. Like when we my sober group talked about this a lot. Like, I should do this and I should do that, and you get to a point where you're like, should I? Is that really what I should be doing? I mean, the word should, we should kind of eliminate it. Just kind of say, like, we just need to be okay with where we are with our life. We don't need to be a certain way. We don't need to be a certain type of person. We don't need to act a certain way. We can just, be our authentic selves, and that's okay, and that's enough. And so that's what I wanted to get at today. You are important. We have to take, just take solace in ourselves. And I was thinking about this the other day. Some of the videos that I watch on YouTube, a lot of the creators, they talk about what they're struggling with, what they're venting, they're telling their opinions of things. And what sobriety has been able to do for me, and just being alcohol free for over 5 years has been able to give me back, is I don't need to go talk things out anymore. I don't need approval from other people. I don't need words of affirmation from other people. Because that used to be like my love language, was like words of affirmation. I needed somebody to tell me I was okay, I was doing okay. And that changed. I got to a point where that doesn't matter, like, at all. And but it was because of the alcohol, but it was also because I needed to work on my self-esteem. I needed to improve on my outlook on life was very negative, and I'm not going to say I'm always positive now. There's days when I'm like, F this, and I thought about it yesterday. For my job, I drive clients around. It's public transportation, and I thought, I'm almost done, but then they added one on where I had to drive out another half an hour from where I just came from, and then come back another half an hour. So it added on an hour, and I'm like, man, I'm going out to BFE, and I used to think I used to use that term BFE all the time, and I realize I still use it from time to time, but how far are we willing to go for our recovery? How far are we willing to go for our sobriety? How far are we willing to go? And if you're willing to go to BFE, if you're willing to go all the way to wherever you have to go to stay alcohol free and to see what life can be like without alcohol, you're gonna make it. You're going to make it, and throw all the worries about everything else out the door. That's what's most important. And I hear Theo Vaughn talk about his recovery a lot. I think he's been sober for a few years now, and I would think at this point that he wouldn't need to really focus that much on his recovery. but that doesn't mean that you don't. I mean, it just, for me, it was around year 3 where I felt really solidified, like I didn't need to escape anymore. I felt okay with my relationships with everybody in my life. And if you still are working on it after 3 years, then that is what it is. But if you're willing to go as far as it takes, as long as it takes, then you're going to make this. And that's really what it takes. It takes 100% commitment to being alcohol free. And once you commit to that, there's no way to go but up for all of the aspects in your life, because you're able to grow now. You're able to take the time to look within and really ask yourself the hard questions, like, what makes me tick? What do I enjoy doing? Who do I enjoy being around? And then you can focus on those things, and you kind of push away all the nonsense that was in your life before, and then now you can just focus on those positive things. And like I said, I got to a point where I didn't really need to worry about it anymore. And I think that that's going to happen for you too if you stick with it. So I'm glad that you guys are here. Please like, subscribe, hit the thanks button, become a member. I've got members only videos coming out, members only shorts, and different things. So there's different member levels. Got a sobriety group called Sobriety in the Storm. You can join there. I'll pin the link in the comments below. It's a private Facebook group. And so, yeah, I'm glad that you guys are here. Have a great sober day, and we'll see you on the next one.